updates. Good morning, Tobago. Wake up with Kandace and Denise. Let's go.
Welcome back to Good Morning Tobago. On Tobago Updates, viewers, yes, we have changed direction and position, and we are here in front of a screen, and we are being joined by Miss Carolyn de Coteau, who is a supervisor in the TNT Met Services. So a special good morning and welcome to you.
Good morning, Kandace. Thank you for having me.
Now, you know that the last few days, the last few weeks have been so hot. I mean, we've had some record-breaking temperatures right here in Tobago and in Trinidad and so on. I mean, maybe I could get started with that a little bit. You know, tell me about some of those record-breaking temperatures that we've been experiencing over the past few weeks.
Okay, so those temperatures are attributed to several factors. Actually, what we are experiencing now is a hot spell as opposed to a heat wave, right? It can be part of a heat wave, but it's not actually a heat wave because a heat wave is defined by the Meteorological Organization as 3 or more days of temperatures being higher than the average by about 5 degrees Celsius. What we have been having is temperatures 32 degrees, 32.5 degrees, and so on, but not, and this is normal for this time of year, because the months of May to October in Trinidad and Tobago are actually the heating months where you feel warm and sticky in the night. During the day, you may have a light breeze and so. Now, Tobago has an advantage over Trinidad in that we are more easterly and more northerly, so we are further from the equator, so therefore the impacts of the heat will be less, even though we are feeling this warm. There are several factors that actually lead into this amount of heat. If you notice on a daily basis, we hardly have any cloud cover.
Yes.
That is because of El Nino. We are in a strong El Nino. El Nino is a phenomenon that for our area, it causes a reduction in cloud buildups and so on, right? You really have to have a strong system in order for us to get clouds. So because of that, we are getting direct solar radiation coming in. It goes out during the night, so you might have a breeze, and you might notice that the nights might be cooler than expected because the long wave radiation is going out. But coming in direct, no clouds to block anything, so we're getting it hot, right? Literally. Right?
And as we can see here, there's not much
cloud cover, and then Mr. Nigel is pulling everything north, taking a lot of our moisture away. To the east of us, we have a tropical wave that is approaching, which may affect us by Thursday, so we'll see how that pans out. So we can go on to the next slide.
I mean, and you mentioned something that sometimes the night might be
a bit cooler than, because even there's mixing, right?
Yeah.
And you have the long wave radiation going out, and that goes out faster. And because there's no cloud cover, it goes out and it will cool faster.
Sometimes, though, what you're feeling, or at least, I don't know, maybe I might be experiencing differently. Sometimes when you step outside in the night, you don't
warm.
feel any difference.
It's warm because you still have that radiation going out. Later on, as the night progresses, it will get cooler coming down to morning, which is when you experience minimum temperatures generally, right? Another reason for the heat over us is these high sea surface temperatures over Trinidad. They go to the east of us in the Atlantic. This hot pink here actually represents about 30 degrees Celsius. Normally, around this time of year, we have temperatures which is about 25 to 26 degrees Celsius, which is suitable for hurricane formation, right? But 30 degrees, so that means the heat capacity of water that is giving all that heat over us as well. So that is another reason why we are having these hot temperatures. Also, the North Atlantic Oscillation is in a positive phase, which means you have lighter winds. So you notice less Saharan dust. Last year it was in a positive phase, this year is negative. So that will also mean that we have higher temperatures. The atmosphere is weighing down on us basically and causing hot temperatures.
And then what does this also mean for the chance of formation of stronger storms and so on in the Atlantic?
Well, really and truly, that would not affect them because it wouldn't affect the storms to that extent. I mean, you have warmer temperatures, yes, but we are still in El Nino. And El Nino usually causes wind shear at the upper level. So if you notice, a lot of these storms reach up to the north and then they get pushed away, or they get shearing, or they get pushed away by a front affecting and interacting with them. I'm sure you have noticed recently.
Yes.
They say, oh, they're going to intensify because of the warm temperatures in the Atlantic Ocean, and then they just fizz out, right? So thankfully, that is not panning out along with Mr. El Nino, right? But we also have the sun angle. We are going into our equinoctial phase on the 23rd of September. You'll have equal day and night. But again, we are further north of Trinidad, as you can see here, and to the east, so we'll get more breezy conditions than Trinidad. Trinidad and northern Venezuela, northeastern Venezuela, will feel the real heat because in the intertropical convergence zone is quite low, right? So.
And can you explain a bit more detail as to why the ITCZ is a little bit lower this time of the year than normally is?
That really has no explanation. The last few rainy seasons, it was actually lower than normal because it normally follows the summer hemisphere. We are in the summer hemisphere right now because it is northern hemisphere summertime, but it's actually staying low. Again, that might be attributed to El Nino.
So
right?
I think moving on, you have some other stuff on the other slide.
Right, to give it a little more clarity.
Right. So we just right there
So
we
this
have
is, right, the surface analysis, which is updated at 2 a.m. this morning. We have Nigel here and this tropical wave I was speaking about, which is just east of us coming across. So that should come across by, say, Thursday or so. Now, it is moving northwest. It has potential for development, as you will see on another slide. It's had a lot of moisture associated with it and some scattered showers. But again, the drying, El Nino sharing, it has potential for development, but it's moving away from us because, of course, as you know, closer to the equator, the less likelihood of the formation of a storm or a tropical cyclone.
certainly.
Right?
And then, I mean, if you could just explain a little bit for our viewers to understand what you're looking at in terms of these lines that are going around.
So now, Kandace, you want me
Yes.
to do analysis?
Yes.
So these are pressure bars, actually, right? So they show, so the lowest pressure in this system is 1,009 millibars, 1,008 coming out and so on. So 987 is the minimum pressure on the inside of this storm. So that's what it is. So right now, the average pressure over us is 1,012 millibars.
And how does that relate to the
high
heat?
high pressure, because you see 1,019 and you have a high here, 1,012. So it is relatively high.
And how
right?
does that relate to the heat and the weather conditions that
Well,
we
high
experience?
pressures mean warm air, sinking heat. So it all adds up.
Okay.
Right?
And would we have a greater chance of a strong storm forming for this hurricane season? I know we're like halfway through the hurricane season, but what are the chances are? Because we know sometimes it's a little bit more active in September, October.
Well, now is the peak of the hurricane
Yes.
season, and we really haven't had, thankfully, anything strong affecting us because of El Nino. What I expect, nature has a balance.
Yes.
So, in my view, and looking at what has happened with convention over the years, November also will be very rainy because that's the rainiest month of the year, usually, especially in Tobago. You have late October, but of course, October is part of the warming months. But late October into November, the rainfall is definitely going to increase and it's going towards the winter time. So, of course, temperatures will be cooler. There is a low chance that we may have another heat spell before the end of October because we are still in the warming months up to the end of October, right?
So perhaps in time for Carnival?
Hopefully not. No, because then the October Carnival, yeah, there's a possibility, but it's hardly likely to affect us as Trinidad. That's what I keep saying, because our temperatures here are still lower than Trinidad's temperatures.
And I remember for last year Carnival, we had some pretty strong storms. In fact, like a lot of the events were affected by the rain, some orange level weather alerts happening in that week leading up to. Can we see a repeat of that, or is it going to be drier?
It's going to be drier, definitely, because of El Nino. Last year was La Nina, right? So the Girl Child gives really bad rainfall, so on. El Nino, warm and sunny, so more than likely conditions will be favorable for this year's carnival.
What can you tell us a little bit about? Okay, so this
year is actually the moisture profile of the atmosphere. Here you have Nigel. This is that tropical wave to the south of Nigel that is going to go across northwest, right? So that will come over us, move over the Lesser Antilles and the Windward Islands by, say, Thursday or so. So as you see here, this moisture, it's going to be like about 62 parts per million, so on. But it's going to come, the edge of it may affect Tobago, may or may not. Whether it affects us or not directly in terms of the amount of rainfall, we are most likely going to have cloudiness, which will, of course, break that heat spell over Tobago in particular.
Now, I want to go back to the sea temperature map. So I think that was at the slide number 2. But I mean, because we are in an interesting situation right now where we are having concerns about the sea temperature and its effect on coral reefs and that sort of thing. When can we see, or when is it expected we might see a decrease in the sea
So
temperature, or
that will
will we?
start happening around later this year, say November or so. When we go into the cooling months, November, December, January, we start approaching the northern hemisphere winter.
Mm-hmm.
So the sea surface temperature is also going to change, and we look to see what is happening with El Nino, because sometimes these things go into a neutral phase. So you
Mm-hmm.
have a neutral phase where you're not in El Nino neither La Nina, and that will also affect sea surface temperature. But more than likely, the seas will start cooling off in November.
So, and hopefully by the time it starts to cool off, we don't see too much damage in terms of coral bleaching and that
Well,
sort of
these things
thing.
take millions of years to build back and so on. So I mean that is a very ticklish question.
Mhm. Now, what I mean, looking at all these weather systems, weather patterns, and so on, what should people be aware of for the next few weeks? Like what is the advice?
The advice really is that, well, we're in rainy season, so you can't expect rainfall. You can't expect the chance of thunderstorms and flash flooding, especially later on after all this heat. As I said, Mother Nature has a way of, whether we as scientists predict this or that, has a way of balancing things. So we can't expect after all this dry that the runoff will be very quick and cause flash floods and so on in different parts of Trinidad and Tobago. Right?
Yes.
So that's something we have to be vigilant of. We are still in the hurricane season until the 30th of November. And sometimes the rainy season, of course, will extend into December. Right? So you have to be vigilant at all times.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, now, between now and the end of October, be aware of the heat spell and the different, that is still a warming period. That doesn't mean we wouldn't have rain, as you know, but it's going to be short-lived.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
And then any advice for people in terms of how they should take care of themselves?
Well, obviously, stay hydrated, stay out of the sun during 10 and 4, 10 a.m., 4 p.m. Make sure you see about your animals as well, sunblock. So basically, stay away from the heat. I mean, children in school, so they should be under shaded trees and so on, and try to avoid that excessive exposure to the sun.
All right.
Right?
So, I mean, so folks, there you have it. I mean, we're getting ready for a less than active. Is that safe to say? It's a less than.
Well, they actually ramped it up during the season, earlier during the season, and said that we would have more storms, but it only takes one storm to cause a disaster to make it have an effect on us in that sense, right? But
Mm-hmm.
we already going to, this will more than likely form Ophelia,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we are no longer in the alphabet already, but um, it's supposed to be active, and we are seeing that happen. It's just thankfully it's not affecting land that much as with the other years.
Mm-hmm. All right, great. I want to thank you so much, Mr.
You're
Coteau, for
welcome.
being on with us and for giving us a very exclusive, very dynamic look at what's been going on in our oceans and why we are feeling so hot and sweaty out there. So, thank you again.
You're welcome.
All
Thanks
right.
for having me.
And viewers, thank you for being locked onto us, but please don't go anywhere because we have a lot more coming up for you after the break.